We are joined from New York by Peter Firestein, corporate reputation advisor and author of Crisis of Character. You write in your book about building the relationship, presumably with the media, before a crisis hits. Can you talk about that and the importance and relevance of that?
Sure, thank you. And I would say that I agree with my colleagues on the air today that in an institutional sense, our response is an opportunity to show your ingenuousness. And in an institutional sense, that is certainly the only way to handle a crisis. I think the best answer when one is asked how to prepare for a crisis is that the preparation should be initiated 5 years before the crisis happens.
How do you do that?
If you're a global company, you know that there is no way to avoid hurting somebody somewhere in the world someday or spilling some toxic substance into a lake. Whether you do this over the course of time or not, and you probably will, is not does not bring into question your own integrity. This is the law of averages. But you have an opportunity when it occurs to show who you are. There is a moment after a crisis occurs we call the golden hour, when the company has an opportunity to take control of the story and show its truthfulness and its ingenuousness. And companies have become stronger and more famous and have had better reputations for doing this sort of thing. Johnson & Johnson after Tylenol is one example. A counterexample would be Perrier, who experienced some benzene in its water and began to dissemble about the sources of it instead of admitting guilt and finding the solution. And they basically lost their company in a buyout 2 years later because of the retreat of consumers and the subsequent retreat of investors. So it's how you come out after the crisis that really is an opportunity to show who you are. Both Harlan and Linda have talked about the emotional component of communication, and you cannot overestimate that. Its effect is absolutely exponential. And we've seen that over the last few days and over the last months as well, as the outrage of the public against the people in the financial system has begun to express itself, particularly in Goldman Sachs over the last few days. People want to know, who are these people? They want to know if they have any of the similar values. They've never met a person like Lloyd Blankfein. So they want to know if there's any connection, if they're a part of the same society. They want to know if he is like us. And that is a huge piece of leverage with which you cannot overcome a crisis that affects people's lives when you, in fact, are a corporation and a CEO with a job.
What do you see in the corporate world? Is it very difficult for a CEO to stop thinking about potential litigation and then just think about people?
There is an enormous change that is beginning to happen in corporate culture, and it has to do with the way people look at their jobs and how they achieve their goals. Traditionally, in business schools and in legacy in corporate culture, everyone is taught to measure their investments, and they're looking for a return on investment. They want to quantify it as much as possible. And in the age where reputation matters so much, that's no longer possible. You cannot measure the effect of your investment in doing things that prevent a disaster. You cannot measure the cost of the disaster that didn't happen. And people are beginning to realize that they have to bring all of their life values into their jobs on top of all the metricization that they've learned to do.